Abase. To humiliate, degrade. Synonym, disgrace. Examples: the congressman refused to abase himself in front of his fellow politicians. Don't abase your cousin by making fun of his accent. Matthew would abase others in an attempt to elevate himself. Abate. To reduce, lessen. Synonym, decrease. Examples: steps are to be taken to abate pollution. The storm began to abate slightly. They waited for the crowd's fury to abate. Abattoir. Slaughterhouse. Synonym, butchery. Examples: the lambs are taken to the local abattoir to be slaughtered. Dried blood is another animal product from the abattoir, this time to supply nitrogen. He lost all his money and had to sell the farm and go and work in an abattoir in Vienna. Abdicate. To give up a position, usually one of leadership. Synonym, abandon. Examples: whether Edward would abdicate in favor of his brother became the question of the hour. If the king does not abdicate, he will have to be dethroned. The aging founder of the university decided to abdicate. Abduct. Take by force. Synonym, kidnap. Examples: the alien planned to abduct the child when he was away from his house. John was 7 years old when he was abducted by a couple and held for ransom. Tom doesn't believe he was abducted by aliens, I believe he was. Abet. To aid, help, encourage. Synonym, support. Examples: the singer was abetted by a skillful accompanist. The spy succeeded only because he had a friend on the inside to abet him. 3 tax inspectors were accused of aiding and abetting the men charged with fraud. Abhor. Regard with disgust and hatred. Synonym, detest. Examples: they abhor all forms of racial discrimination. Spitting in the street is a practice that I abhor. I abhor the conditions under which we commercially raise farm animals today. Abide. Accept or act in accordance with a rule, decision, or recommendation. Synonym, follow. Examples: you must abide by what you have said. Please feel assured that we will abide by our promise. We are not free agents, we abide by the decisions of our president. Abject. Pitiful. Synonym, wretched. Examples: both of them died in abject poverty. It did not take long for forces from the south to march upon the rebels and throw them into abject retreat. I distinctly remember the overwhelming feeling of abject helplessness which this incident brought about. Abjure. To reject, renounce. Synonym, relinquish. Examples: the conqueror tried to make the natives abjure their religion. To realize this goal, in 2 ways, all artists had to abjure their isolation from the society. He was arrested, had to spend several months in prison and was forced to abjure his professorship. Abridge. To cut down, shorten. Synonym, curtail. Examples: the book was abridged for children. The rights of citizens must not be abridged. The standard can always be abridged if the requirements of the children require the case to be heard very quickly. Abrogate. To abolish, usually by authority. Synonym, revoke. Examples: the rule has been abrogated by mutual consent. This custom was abrogated years ago. The normal privilege against self-incrimination is abrogated by the terms of Section 31 in such proceedings. Abscond. To sneak away and hide. Synonym, escape. Examples: he attempted to abscond from the punishment. You should not abscond from your responsibilities. They could stay if they so choose or they could abscond. Absolution. Freedom from blame, guilt, sin. Synonym, remission. Examples. The priest heard her confession and granted absolution. She had been granted absolution of her sins, but had died protesting her innocence to the last. She felt as if his words had granted her absolution. Abstain. To freely choose not to commit an action. Synonym, refrain. Examples. He took a vow to abstain from alcohol. Trial volunteers are told to abstain from watching TV for a month. The opposition has agreed to abstain, which means the government will win a clear majority. Abstract. Existing in thought or as an idea, but not having a physical or concrete existence. Synonym, theoretical. Examples. It's not a question of some abstract concept. Truth and beauty are abstract concepts. I'm just talking in the abstract now. Abstruse. Hard to comprehend. Synonym, obscure. Examples. Everyone else in the class understood geometry easily, but John found the subject abstruse. Einstein's theory of relativity is very abstruse. Chess playing is a game of such abstruse and dazzling complexity. Abundant. Existing or available in large quantities. Synonym, plentiful. Examples. Mosquitoes are extremely abundant in this dark, wet place. The 10 Secrets of Abundant Wealth is a good book. There is abundant evidence that cars have a harmful effect on the environment. Accede. To agree. Synonym, go along with. Examples. They could do no other than accede to the demands of the victors. Will you accede to her request? Most people would accede to his wishes just to get him out of their face. Accentuate. To stress, highlight. Synonym, feature. Examples. Accentuate the word accent on the first syllable. The new policy only serves to accentuate the inadequacy of provision for the homeless. To manage your way out of recession, accentuate the positive. Acclaim. High praise. Synonym, applaud. Examples. He deserves the acclaim he has received. The astronaut was welcomed with joyous, resounding acclaim. The performance received considerable acclaim. Accomplice. A person who helps another commit a crime. Synonym, accessory. Examples. The butler was an accomplice in the robbery. The man was suspected as an accomplice. She revealed the name of her accomplice during interrogation. Accost. To confront verbally. Synonym, come up to. Examples. She was accosted by a complete stranger. He was accosted by 4 youths and forced to give them all his money. I'm usually accosted by beggars and drunks as I walk to the station. Accretion. Slow growth in size or amount. Synonym, accumulation. Examples. The fund was increased by the accretion of new shareholders. A coral reef is built by the accretion of tiny, identical organisms. Every culture is an accretion. Acerbic. Biting, bitter in tone or taste. Synonym, sharp, harsh. Examples. The letter was written in her usual acerbic style. He was acclaimed for his acerbic wit and repartee. The letters show the acerbic wit for which Parker was both admired and feared. Acme. The point at which something is at its best or most highly developed. Synonym, peak. Examples. His work is considered the acme of cinematic art. The wardrobe illustrated here is from the Acme range. He attained the acme of perfection in landscape painting. Acquiesce. To agree without protesting. Synonym, concur. Examples. Steve seemed to acquiesce in the decision. Her parents will never acquiesce in such an unsuitable marriage. Very few people I have known would acquiesce, if they had any choice, in a subservient position. Acrimony. bitterness, discord. Synonym, resentment. Examples. This book review was written with acrimony. The council's first meeting ended in acrimony. The dispute was settled without acrimony. Acumen. Keen insight. Synonym, awareness. Examples. She had demonstrated considerable business acumen. He lacked the judgment and political acumen for the post of chairman. Beyond his financial acumen, Grigsby knows how to stroke business and political movers. Adamant. Refusing to be persuaded or to change one's mind. Synonym, unshakable. Examples. The Prime Minister is adamant that he will not resign. We are adamant on the building of a well-off society. She remains adamant that an injustice was done. Adept. Extremely skilled. Synonym, proficient. Examples. Tamsin Palmer gave an impressive and technically adept performance on the piano. As a composer, he proved himself adept at large dramatic forms. Children are adept at delaying tactics. Adequate. Satisfactory or acceptable in quality or quantity. Synonym, enough, ample. Examples. Does the procedure provide adequate safeguards against corruption? We cannot guarantee adequate supplies of raw materials. There was adequate rain and snow last winter. Adhere. To stick to something. Synonym, cling. Examples. Paste is used to make one surface adhere to another. Those who adhere to the principles of wisdom have right attitudes. Staff should adhere strictly to the safety guidelines. Admonish. To caution, criticize. Synonym, scold. Examples. Admonish your friends in private, praise them in public. The Ethics Committee may take a decision to admonish him or to censure him. Will tactfully admonish him not to behave like this again. Adorn. Make more beautiful or attractive. Synonym, decorate. Examples. She likes to adorn herself with jewels. He tried to adorn his story with a lot of lies. Large, colorful graphs and charts will adorn the walls of most offices and factories of the workplace of the future. Adulation. Extreme praise. Synonym, admiration. Examples. The book was received with adulation by critics. The band enjoy the adulation of their fans wherever they go. How do you feel about all this adulation and hero worship? Adumbrate. To sketch out. Synonym, outline. Examples. The project's objectives were adumbrated in the report. The candidate had already adumbrated the idea of a welfare state. With assistance from the victim, the sketch artist will adumbrate a picture of the robbery suspect. Adverse. Dangerous, negative. Synonym, unfavorable. Examples. The Conservatives suffered an adverse swing of 11%. The match has been cancelled due to adverse weather conditions. They fear it could have an adverse effect on global financial markets. Aesthetic. Artistic, related to the appreciation of beauty. Synonym, beautiful, attractive, pleasing. Examples. He responded very strongly to the aesthetic of this particular work. Their furniture was more aesthetic than functional. The scenery give great aesthetic pleasure. Affable. Friendly. Synonym, amiable. Examples. The chairman was quite affable at the meeting. He is an affable man, always willing to stop and talk. She married an affable, middle-aged businessman. Affinity. A spontaneous feeling of closeness. Synonym, attraction, harmony. Examples. He has an affinity for fine food. There is close affinity between Italian and Spanish. Humans have a special affinity for dolphins. Afflict. Cause pain or trouble to, affect adversely. Synonym, distress. Examples. Famine and war still afflict mankind. There are two main problems which afflict people with hearing impairments. The disease afflicts an estimated 2 million people every year. Affluent. Rich, wealthy. Synonym, well off. Examples. He is an affluent man. Both came from affluent backgrounds and were educated at top business schools. After graduation from high school, he went to work for his uncle, an affluent rice wholesaler. Affront. An insult. Synonym, offense. Examples. Your behavior is an affront to public decency. He regarded the comments as an affront to his dignity. This remark caused affront to many people. Aggrandize. Increase the power, status, or wealth of. Synonym, magnify, intensify. Examples. The dictator sought to aggrandize himself by new conquests. All he desired was to aggrandize his estate. A country shall not aggrandize itself at the expense of its neighbors. Aggrieved. Distressed, wronged, injured. Synonym, discontented. Examples. He felt aggrieved at not being chosen for the team. His tone was by turns angry and aggrieved. The villagers felt deeply aggrieved by the closing of the railway station. Agrarian. Relating to cultivated land or the cultivation of land. Synonym, agricultural. Examples. This part of the country is mainly agrarian. The difficulty with many agrarian reform programs has been achieving both social justice and economic growth. Pakistan is rapidly diversifying its agrarian economy. Aisle. A passageway between rows of seats or shelves. Synonym, corridor. Examples. I walked up and down the aisle to stretch my cramped muscles. Coffee and tea are in the next aisle. Would you like an aisle seat or would you prefer to be by the window? Alias. A false name or identity. Synonym, nickname. Examples. He checked into the hotel under an alias. The name Darren was an alias he used to avoid the police. Using an alias, he had rented a house in Fleet, Hampshire. Allegiance. Loyalty or commitment to a superior or to a group or cause. Synonym, devotion. Examples. You owe allegiance to your king. He took an oath of allegiance to his adopted country. Soldiers must swear allegiance to the king. Alleviate. To relieve, make more bearable. Synonym, ease. Examples. The organization works to alleviate world hunger and disease. A cold compress can alleviate your pain. Helping to alleviate poverty in developing countries also helps to reduce environmental destruction. Aloof. Distant. Synonym, reserve. Examples. Never stand aloof from the masses. He often keeps aloof when we chat together. They worked hard, but tended to stay aloof from the local inhabitants. Altercation. A dispute, fight. Synonym, quarrel. Examples. The boys had an altercation over the umpire's decision. A youth became involved in an altercation with a police officer over a parking ticket. According to witnesses, the altercation between the two men started inside the restaurant. Amalgamate. To bring together, unite. Synonym, merge. Examples. The electricians' union is planning to amalgamate with the technicians' union. They decided to amalgamate the two schools. We are happy to amalgamate with your company. Ambiguous. Uncertain, variably interpretable. Synonym, unclear. Examples. He gave me an ambiguous answer. His reply to my question was somewhat ambiguous. This agreement is very ambiguous and open to various interpretations. Ambivalent. Having opposing feelings. Synonym, uncertain. Examples. She remained ambivalent about her marriage. We are both somewhat ambivalent about having a child. He was greeted with ambivalent enthusiasm. Ameliorate. To improve. Synonym, enhance. Examples. Steps have been taken to ameliorate the situation. Measures to ameliorate working conditions have had little effect. At the same time, we had to cut our costs and reduce the numbers to at least ameliorate the losses. Amenable. Willing, compliant. Synonym, accommodating. Examples. She might be more amenable to the idea if you explained how much money it would save. The Jordanian leader seemed amenable to attending a conference. Not all jobs are amenable to flexible scheduling. Amenity. An item that increases comfort. Synonym, facility. Examples. Heating is regarded as a basic amenity. Modern resorts offer every amenity for shopping. Clearly, this was unacceptable both from an amenity point of view and for access by emergency services. Amorphous. Without definite shape or type. Synonym, shapeless. Examples. A dark, strangely amorphous shadow filled the room. These solids are said to be amorphous. The molten rock hardens into amorphous forms. Analgesic. Something that reduces pain. Synonym, pain reliever. Examples. Aspirin is a popular analgesic. It was better than an analgesic in her blood. Analgesic and antiemetic drugs had been prescribed. Anarchist. A person who believes in or tries to bring about anarchy. Synonym, agitator. Examples. He was a social anarchist. The anarchist movement and its radicalism provided a crucial background for the introduction of Marxist ideas. This work is about the life of an anarchist. Anathema. Something or someone that one vehemently dislikes. Synonym, hateful. Examples. His political views were anathema to me. For older employees, the new system is an anathema. However, such regulatory mechanisms have always been anathema to the newspaper industry. Anguish. Extreme sadness, torment. Synonym, suffering. Examples. Tears of anguish filled her eyes. The anguish was so great that it turned into madness. His anguish at the outcome of the court case was very clear. Annihilate. Demolish, destroy. Synonym, eradicate. Examples. He was annihilated in the finals of the competition. The enemy was annihilated. Just one of these bombs could annihilate a city the size of New York. Annul. To make void or invalid. Synonym, revoke. Examples. Will you really annul my judgment? His second marriage was annulled because he never divorced his first wife. They have the power to alter or annul inappropriate decisions of their own standing committees. Anonymous. Being unknown, unrecognized. Synonym, nameless. Examples. I'm not prepared to give credence to anonymous complaints. The money was donated by an anonymous benefactor. You can remain anonymous if you wish. Antagonism. Hostility. Synonym, opposition. Examples. She felt nothing but antagonism towards her boss. There's a history of antagonism between the two teams. The antagonism he felt towards his old enemy was still very strong. Antediluvian. Ancient. Synonym, primeval. Examples. My mother has some hopelessly antediluvian ideas about the role of women. Because Kurt received a new laptop for his birthday, he gave away his antediluvian computer for free. As soon as the latest iPhone came out, the older models became antediluvian to tech experts. Antiquated. Old, out of date. Synonym, outdated. Examples. It will take many years to modernize these antiquated industries. Her army and navy were becoming antiquated. My mother's antiquated vacuum cleaner still works, believe it or not. Antiseptic. Clean, sterile. Synonym, disinfectant. Examples. Antiseptic is used to sterilize the skin before giving an injection. Essential oils have powerful antiseptic properties. In the 1870s and 1880s, doctors began to follow the principles of antiseptic surgery. Apathetic. Lacking concern, emotion. Synonym, unconcerned. Examples. I realized I was becoming increasingly depressed and apathetic. They may become apathetic, unable to do even the simplest task. Some parents are completely apathetic about their children's education and show little interest in it. Apocryphal. False, wrong. Synonym, fictitious. Examples. Most of the stories about him are apocryphal. The thing is, they turn out not to be apocryphal. After years of research, the scientists were finally able to disprove the apocryphal theory. Appalling. Causing shock, horror, disgust. Synonym, terrible. Examples. It is appalling that child was murdered. Conditions in the prison are said to be appalling. Your table manners are appalling, don't you know how to use a knife and fork? Appease. To calm, satisfy. Synonym, soothe. Examples. He tried to appease the crying child by giving him candy. The government tried to appease discontented workers. She claimed that the government had only changed the law in order to appease their critics. Appraise. To assess the worth or value of. Synonym, evaluate. Examples. An employer should appraise the ability of his employees. We had an expert appraise the house before we bought it. It is of course difficult to appraise people's motives for buying or selling derivative assets, so mere observation is insufficient. Apprehend. To seize, arrest. Synonym, imprison. Examples. The police have failed to apprehend the culprits. Local people demanded that the district magistrate apprehend the miscreants. Orders were immediately sent out by Bustamante to the neighboring states to apprehend the fugitives. Apprehend. To perceive, understand. Synonym, grasp. Examples. I apprehend no worsening of the situation. They were slow to apprehend the danger. Are you sure you entirely apprehend the importance of completing these forms as accurately as possible? Arable. Suitable for growing crops. Synonym, fertile. Examples. Most of the farmers grow arable crops. The terrain changed quickly from arable land to desert. Most arable farmers are nothing more than basic commodity producers. Arbiter. One who can resolve a dispute, make a decision. Synonym, conciliator. Examples. Andrew was the arbiter of the disagreement. The arbiter will have the last say. He is an arbiter between the contending parties. Arbitration. The process or act of resolving a dispute. Synonym, conciliation. Examples. Both sides have agreed that the arbitration will be binding. UK employment law embodies arbitration and conciliation mechanisms for settling industrial disputes. The school district and teachers agreed to binding arbitration. Arcane. Obscure, secret, known only by a few. Synonym, mysterious. Examples. This argument may seem arcane to those not closely involved in the world of finance. He was the only person who understood all the arcane details of the agreement. They worked hard to negotiate New York's arcane rules for getting on presidential ballots. Ardor. Extreme vigor, energy. Synonym, enthusiasm. Examples. It is a person with a great ardor for some cause. His political ardor led him into many arguments. She displayed great ardor for art. Arid. Excessively dry. Synonym, withered. Examples. The prison was set among arid country in sandy plains. Our road cut through the arid plain that had stretched before us yesterday. This system is in general use throughout the arid portions of the West. Artifact. A remaining piece from an extinct culture or place. Synonym, historical, antique. Examples. The church was a hallowed place because of the sacred artifacts. The prize awaiting at the end is usually a valuable artifact. This artifact was created during the 8th century in Ireland. Artisan. A worker in a skilled trade. Synonym, craftsman. Examples. It was the era of the artisan artist. It was in connection with architecture that the great artisan movement began. They were concerned about the skilled artisan, not the factory masses. Ascetic. Practicing restraint as a means of self-discipline, usually religious. Synonym, rigorous. Examples. Here he lived a quiet if not an ascetic life. A more or less ascetic mode of life was also natural under the circumstances. His mode of life was simple and ascetic in the extreme. Ascribe. To assign, credit. Synonym, attribute to. Examples. People like to ascribe human feelings to animals. To what do you ascribe your phenomenal success? We ascribe great importance to these policies. Assail. To attack. Synonym, assault. Examples. The opposition's newspapers assail the government each day. If anyone ever talks negatively about Alex's father, his response is to assail the person with insults. These days nightmares assail him badly. Assiduous. Hardworking. Synonym, diligent. Examples. The government has been assiduous in the fight against inflation. She was assiduous in her duties. Such assiduous attention has never been directed at this market before. Astute. Very clever, crafty. Synonym, sharp. Examples. He made a series of astute business decisions. It was an astute move to sell just before prices went down. The criminal was very astute and well matched the detective in intelligence. Atone. To repent, make amends. Synonym, repay. Examples. The country's leader has expressed a wish to atone for his actions in the past. How can I atone for hurting your feelings? But to atone for this and other abuses, the firms have already promised billions of dollars to state governments. Atrophy. Waste away, especially as a result of the degeneration of cells. Synonym, decay. Examples. Signs include pain, weakness, and rear limb muscle atrophy. Skin atrophy affects derma and subcutaneous tissue. Memory can atrophy through lack of use. Attain. To achieve, arrive at. Synonym, accomplish. Examples. Their strategy was to claim that output targets were unattainable and not to attain them. Here is your opportunity to attain a goal. In my experience, people who tried to attain their ends by covert means came to unfortunate ends. Attire. Clothing. Synonym, dressing. Examples. I hardly think jeans are appropriate attire for a wedding. Guests are requested to wear formal attire. I was never conscious that my attire was odd until I had my first normal boys' gear. Audacious. Excessively bold. Synonym, fearless. Examples. He described the plan as ambitious and audacious. But Cambridge found their feet and took an audacious lead. Clara herself had never audacious enough to say that. Audible. Able to be heard. Synonym, clear, distinct. Examples. There was an audible sigh of relief when the news came through that nobody was hurt. His words were barely audible. A voice synthesizer gives further audible warnings. Avarice. Excessive greed. Synonym, lust. Examples. Avarice increases with wealth. I interpreted his secrecy as emotional avarice. He paid a month's rent in advance, just enough to satisfy the landlord's avarice. Avert. Prevent or ward off. Synonym, avoid. Examples. He managed to avert the closure of the factory. Sudan requires food immediately to avert a humanitarian catastrophe. Negotiations continued all day to avert a strike. Awful. Very bad or unpleasant. Synonym, disgusting. Examples. The poor little bugger got an awful shock. I feel awful about forgetting her birthday. There's an awful smell in here.